You ever felt a presence or someone, even when there's absolutely no one else around? That chilling sensation on the back of your neck, a whisper you swear you heard at the very edge of your hearing, or the unsettling feeling that every shadow conceals a watchful gaze. Imagine that sensation not as a fleeting visit, but as a constant. A presence that not only inhabits your home, but nests in your mind, transforming every familiar room into a stage for paranoia. This isn't a ghost story with rattling chains. This is about something far more subtle, far more cruel. This is about a type of fear that forces you to question, are you losing your sanity? Or is there something more? Something you invited in that now simply won't leave? The beach house, a refuge, a sanctuary of family summers, laughter, and the salty ocean breeze. At least, that's what it was supposed to be. For Jordan, this house had always been the epicenter of warm memories, a place where 25 family members crammed in, playing games and drinking too much, filling every corner with noise and life. But now, it was empty. A disturbing silence crept through the hallways, a silence so dense it seemed to scream, echoing the strange gap in Jordan's life. Newly graduated, with too much free time before the job started, stuck between two phases of life.
Jordan had finished college a semester early, a decision that seemed brilliant at the time when assignments were overwhelming. But now, with all that free time, the inactivity was killing them. Jordan is someone who always needs to be doing something productive, so just sitting around for days on end watching time pass was agonizing. That's probably why they said yes when their mom asked them to check on Uncle Rick's beach house. It was an easy favor: drive down to Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, make sure nothing was leaking or damaged, and do some small maintenance to save Rick the cost of hiring someone. The house was massive, the kind that comfortably holds Jordan's entire extended family every summer. 25 of them packed into one place playing games and drinking too much. The house isn't exactly on the shoreline, but it's not too far from the beach either. It's nestled in a quieter neighborhood lined with tall beach grass and winding roads. Jordan left in the late afternoon, which in hindsight was probably a dumb idea. The drive was pretty chill. When they got to the house, everything seemed normal. Jordan made their way inside and ran through Rick's checklist. Checked the faucets, the breakers, and walked the property. Everything looked fine. But to be completely frank, it felt strange being there alone. Jordan had never seen that house without miscellaneous board games sprawled about and crowds of family members noisily drinking. The silence was definitely the most eerie thing about it. The place felt abandoned or something. Imagine a place that's usually rowdy and full of life with your whole family, now empty and silent. Kind of spooky, right?
It was getting late, and Jordan hated driving at night more than anything. So they texted their mom to let her know they'd just stay overnight and head back in the morning. She told them that was a good idea and reminded them to thank Uncle Rick for letting them stay there, which Jordan did. They made themselves some food, messed around on their phone for a bit, and then started washing up for the night. Usually during family gatherings, Jordan would get jammed into one of the smaller rooms on the third floor, while other relatives got to claim the nicer, bigger rooms. Not complaining about the system at all, just telling you how things tended to go. Since they had the house to themselves that night, though, Jordan figured they'd take advantage of it. The master bedroom on the second floor has a private bathroom, a massive walk-in closet, and a ridiculously comfortable bed. The decision wasn't difficult. Jordan knew that's where they'd be sleeping. They climbed in around midnight and quickly drifted off. Jordan doesn't remember what time it was when they woke up, only that something startled them awake. They were still a little groggy, but they were dead sure a sound had just come from the closet, like something had fallen in there without making any noise. Jordan craned their head to look at the closet. Even that small action sent their heartbeat racing. Their mind was awake, but their body refused to move, like some kind of sleep paralysis without the paralysis. Jordan could move, they just didn't want to. They didn't want to find out if there was something in that closet.
Jordan squinted their eyes shut and told themselves to go back to sleep, and they almost did. But the literal second they started drifting back into sleep, they heard it, a muffled thump from inside the closet. Jordan squinted their eyes just a smidge and tried convincing themselves they'd imagined it, but they knew they hadn't. As if overcome by some invisible force, Jordan lay there in complete paralysis, with no control over their body whatsoever. Not like before. This time it was real. They couldn't move even if they wanted to. Until that moment, Jordan didn't truly understand what it meant to be frozen in place. They listened in horror as the closet door slowly creaked open. Through barely open eyes, Jordan watched as a dark figure stepped into the room. It just stood there beside the bed, motionlessly watching them. Maybe 20 seconds passed, each second feeling impossibly long. Then silently, it turned and left the room. Jordan stayed completely still, barely breathing. The footsteps moved across the floor, but instead of heading downstairs like they had expected them to, they actually creaked upstairs to the 3rd floor. Jordan's stomach churned. The only staircase led up there. There was no exit from there. Their mind was screaming at them to do something, but they were too afraid. Jordan couldn't overpower a grown man. They had no idea if he was armed. The only thing Jordan could do was wait. After a few painful moments in their own head, Jordan worked up the courage to snap themselves out of the paralysis. Quietly, they reached for their phone and dialed 911. As soon as the dispatcher picked up, Jordan whispered as quietly as they could, telling them someone was in the house. They slipped out of bed and just as quietly turned the lock on the bedroom door. Then they waited. Minutes dragged painfully by until flashing red and blue lights illuminated the windows. Jordan was actually kind of shocked at how quickly the police arrived. They ran down the stairs, threw open the front door, and nearly collapsed in relief when they saw the police. They didn't hesitate. They stormed inside, moving quickly through the house. Jordan waited outside. It didn't take them long. According to them, the house was empty. Jordan was in disbelief. They had heard the footsteps go up, and there was nowhere to go after that, so he must have still been in the house. There was no other explanation. The police insisted he must have slipped past them, that Jordan was too freaked out to notice. Jordan knew that wasn't true, but what could they say? The guy had vanished.
Jordan wasn't comfortable letting the police just leave though, so they called Rick. Rick wasn't having it. He snapped at the police and told them to check again and that Jordan's life might have depended on it. So they did. They searched again, more thoroughly this time. Rick told Jordan to follow them and watch what they were doing, and so Jordan did. The officers moved methodically, opening every closet and checking under beds, tapping at the walls like they were expecting something hidden behind them. They pulled back the shower curtain in every bathroom, double-checked the locks on the doors and the windows. And that's when they found it. One of the bedroom windows on the 3rd floor, the room Jordan should have been sleeping in, was unlocked. One of them stood by the door while the other one went downstairs and stepped onto the back deck. Jordan opted to go outside with the second officer, mostly because the thought of being locked in the house with some stranger sickened them. The officer shined his light around the property, but there was nothing out there. He started scanning the roof, and to Jordan's horror, his beam swept across something terrifying. It was him. It was that stranger that had been in the house. He was just sitting there on the roof. He was this disgusting-looking bald man in tattered clothing who looked like he hadn't seen a shower in years. The next hour was a blur. The cops communicated with each other and they got the guy off the roof in cuffs. The police said he was probably homeless and squatting in the house for days, maybe longer. But when they asked him how he got in, how long he'd been there, and why he was hiding in the closet, he didn't answer. He just kept that eerie, vacant look like none of it mattered to him. He was in the back of one of their police cars shortly after that, and that was that. The whole thing was so crazy that it's still hard to wrap Jordan's head around. As much as they tried, they cannot figure out why that guy had been hiding in that closet, of all places. Maybe he heard Jordan enter the house and hid in the first place he thought of. Jordan still doesn't know how he got into the house. Rick doesn't either. It's impossible to get to the roof from the ground, so Jordan feels like that explanation is pretty logical.
The rest of Jordan's extended family has been insisting that Rick ups his home security, but he's refused every time for reasons Jordan can't explain.
The words of H.P. Lovecraft echo like a grim warning. The oldest and strongest emotion of mankind is fear, and the oldest and strongest kind of fear is fear of the unknown. The most disturbing truth, however, came with a cold, chilling realization. Jordan had only chosen the master bedroom because the house was empty. If the family had been there, Jordan would have been in one of the smaller rooms on the third floor, the very room whose window was unlocked, where the dark figure ascended, where Jordan would have fallen asleep, unaware, vulnerable. That thought, that had Jordan been sleeping in their assigned bedroom that night, it might have ended very differently, still haunts them. The days that followed were a haze. Jordan tried, in vain, to resume their pre-incident routine, but the silence now carried a different weight. Every creak of the floorboards, every gust of wind, sounded like a warning. The master bedroom, once a refuge of comfort, now evoked the image of that dark figure, motionless beside the bed. The memory of the paralysis, of the body refusing to obey the mind, persisted like a phantom. Jordan found themselves repeatedly checking locks, windows, even in their own home, hundreds of miles away from Rehoboth. Sleep was fragmented, filled with recurring nightmares of the closet door opening and the footsteps ascending endlessly to an unreachable place. Jordan's mind, once focused on future plans, was now trapped in an endless loop of what-ifs. What if the police hadn't arrived in time? What if Uncle Rick hadn't insisted? What if he was still there? Paranoia began to take root. The fear of the unknown, so aptly described by Lovecraft, transformed into the fear of what had already been known but never explained. The roof, the unlocked window, the man's vacant stare, they were pieces of a puzzle that refused to fit, and the absence of a logical answer was the true horror.
Jordan's unease wasn't confined to the night. During the day, in public settings, the sensation of being watched was constant. In cafes, on bustling streets, or even at home, peripheral vision caught movements that weren't there, shadows that seemed to stretch beyond what was natural. Jordan began to avoid mirrors, or at least their own reflection, fearing to see something else lurking behind. Sunlight, once a symbol of security, now only revealed dark corners where imagination or memory could play tricks. There was one particular afternoon, while Jordan was in the kitchen, that a glass on the top shelf fell and shattered on the floor. No wind, no vibration, just the sharp sound of breaking glass and the instant feeling that it wasn't an accident. Jordan stood frozen, heart pounding, staring at the empty space above the sink. No one was there. But the chill that spread through the air, the same chill Jordan felt when the figure was beside the bed, was undeniable. It was as if the presence had infiltrated not just Rick's house, but now Jordan's very life, a shadow that refused to dissipate. Jordan's hearing began to sharpen to what wasn't there. In the silence of their own room at night, distant, indistinct voices seemed to float in the air. They were whispers, impossible to decipher, but carrying a tone of malice and derision. Jordan would find themselves holding their breath, trying to focus, trying to understand what those voices meant. Were they words, laughter, or merely the sound of their own mind unraveling? One night, the phone rang. It was a call from an unknown number. Jordan answered, hesitant, and heard only static. A hissing sound, almost a crackle, that lasted for seconds before the call dropped. It wasn't the first time. Unanswered calls, strange noises on the line, always from numbers that couldn't be traced. The paranoia grew. Was it the man on the roof? Someone who knew? Or was it the manifestation of something deeper, something the beach house experience had awakened? Jordan began to log every occurrence, a desperate attempt to find a pattern, to prove to themselves that they weren't going insane. Jordan's obsession with Uncle Rick's house security became a point of tension,
Constant calls, emails, pleas for him to install an alarm system, reinforce the locks. But Rick's refusal was unyielding, almost irrational. "It's an old house, Jordan. Things happen. It's all fine now." His words were like poison, feeding Jordan's paranoia. Why the insistence? What was he hiding? Jordan began to suspect Rick, questioning if he knew more than he was letting on, if there was something more to the house's history that the family concealed. The relationship, once warm, was now eroding with fear and distrust. Jordan started avoiding talking about the incident with anyone, which only deepened the isolation. Insomnia became a constant companion. Sleepless nights, sitting in the dark, watching the bedroom door, imagining what might be on the other side. Their tired, red eyes refused to close. The reflection in the mirror showed a stranger, pale, with deep, dark circles, eyes filled with a fear that seemed to age Jordan years. The invisible tenant was no longer just in the beach house. It had moved into Jordan's mind, a parasite feeding on fear and doubt. Jordan's obsession with Rick's house reached a breaking point. Unable to convince their uncle, Jordan decided to go there alone, driving back to Rehoboth Beach, but this time without telling anyone. They arrived at the house in the dead of night, under a starless sky. The silence was even more oppressive. No lights were on, no signs of life. Jordan had brought a powerful flashlight, and with trembling hands began to inspect the property once more. This time they weren't looking for signs of forced entry, but for something more subtle. A detail, a trace, anything the police might have missed. They reached the third floor, the room with the unlocked window. The window was now locked, which was a momentary relief, but the uneasiness persisted. Jordan swept the light across the room, over the dusty furniture. And then, on the wall opposite the window, almost imperceptible beneath a layer of dust and cobwebs, Jordan noticed something. A scratch. Not a superficial scratch, but a deep mark, as if something heavy and sharp had been dragged across the wood. It was long, about 3 feet, and it looked fresh. Jordan touched it, the rough wood under their fingers. And further down, almost at the baseboard, there was something even more disturbing. Etched into the wood, not visible at first glance, was a symbol. A crude symbol, almost a childlike drawing, but to Jordan, it seemed strangely familiar, like something out of a nightmare. Jordan took a picture with their phone, the flashlight trembling in their hand. In that moment, there was no doubt, that wasn't the work of a homeless person. That house wasn't just a place, it was a meeting point. And the tenant wasn't just a man.
You truly think that was just a homeless person? Or was the invisible tenant waiting for something more intimate? Perhaps he never truly left. Perhaps he merely retreated, waiting for the next opportunity. And now, as the night deepens and the shadows lengthen, are you sure you're alone right now? Leave your comment if you believe something like this could happen, if you've ever felt a presence where no one should be, or if this account made you lock your door and check under your bed. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more stories that will make you doubt every shadow in your room and every sound from the silence.
If you enjoyed this creepy story, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more chilling tales every week. Stay spooky!